Outside the Box Reviews, we are taking a look at the Mezco Universal Monsters 9-inch stylized Frankenstein figure. Or more correctly, it should be the Frankenstein's monster, but yeah, that's just me being a nerd, I guess. And over the years, Mezco has done a very large share of 9-inch stylized figures from horror franchises. They did it with the Cinema of Fear line, hitting Freddy, Jason, Leatherface, and Michael Myers. They did one for the Wolfman remake, and in recent years, once a year, they've started putting out these Universal horror themed ones. And as you might know from some of my other reviews, I am a big fan of Universal horror films, so this seemed like a perfect buy for me. So let's take a closer look. And the fact that this is a stylized figure really does help, because there's no real way to say it's wrong, but we have a very dour looking Frankenstein monster face. It's a greenish gray. He's the kind of shut eyelids, very similar to how Boris Karloff looked in the original film. The staple up here at his hairline, a little gash there. His very, very flat top head with all the hair sculpted in. Got one full bolt sticking out of the side of his neck, and then a kind of cut off bolt here. The upper torso of this figure does have real cloth clothing. We have a jacket that's very worn, very torn up, especially here at the bottom and the back, but very appropriate for the character. Then he kind of has a mesh wife beater going on here. This is actual soft goods as well. We have his hands. We can see the stitches around his wrist. His big, gnarly, monstrous hands, big black nails on them. Very good looking. He's got another staple coming down here on the side of his arm. His pants are sculpted, but they are sculpted really well. Lots of wrinkles, a nice kind of grayish wash over the black, a button up there at the waist, coming down to his big hulking boots here, his big Frankenstein boots that are so iconic to the character. Very nicely done, very nice texture to them. It's a very simple figure overall, but it looks pretty good. Now, there is another way you could pose this figure. You can actually pop the hands off and remove the jacket. Obviously, this is something you'll want to be careful with doing, not to rip the clothing, but there's a lot of great detail underneath. See, there's a cut in his upper arm here, also there on the other side. And then we can even go a step further. He does have Velcro in the back of his wife beater, and we can undo that, and we could further strip down Frankenstein's monster. Now, I just kind of have it laying down there because it is actually tucked in under the ball joint at his waist. I don't want to mess with it, but you could take this off if you wanted to. And there is some great sculpted detail underneath here. He has a very well sculpted chest, lots of stitches. He has some more cuts in there that I actually think are really badly painted. They're way too bright of a red, but it's pretty cool looking. Mezco really sculpted everything on this figure, and actually it's almost a shame that it does get covered up with all the clothing. For articulation, he has a ball joint at the neck. He could look up just a little, look down pretty far, and then turn a little side to side, hindered by the shape of his jaw. It kind of forces his head to look up when you turn it to the side. He has a mid-torso ball joint, so you can go forward and back, and a little side to side, a little rocking action there. He also has a ball joint at the waist where he gets a lot more motion, but still not a whole lot of side to side. He has a pin socket shoulder, so you can go forward and back and out to the side. He has a cut joint just below the elbow, so you could rotate the arm and kind of trick it to look extended or bent. And he has a cut joint at the wrist, and then he has a cut joint at each foot, letting him kind of stand a little better. So that is the Mezco stylized Frankenstein, or Frankenstein's monster figure, and I really like it. These things were notorious peg warmers. It didn't seem like a whole lot of people actually wanted to pick them up, but it's been a series that I've been in on, and I do hope it does continue this year with the mummy figure they've promised us. I like the way they've stylized the figures. I like the amount of detail they put into it. I like the actual cloth clothing, at least on the upper torso. It kind of reminds me of that 12-inch Jason I had previously reviewed as well. And overall, I just think it's a really well done piece. I think part of the reason this figure has been such a peg warmer is the fact that Toys R Us way overprices it. I did pay, well, not quite full price on this first one. I did have a coupon for it that knocked it down to a more reasonable price. But the second figure in this line, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, I actually found it elsewhere for about 2/3 of what Toys R Us was charging, which was a great savings at the time. But I do recommend this figure. If you're a Universal horror fan, I think it can have a nice place in your collection. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, username Outside the Box Reviews. Also check me out on Facebook, link below. And until next time, this has been Outside the Box Reviews. Stay tuned for more to come.